Hello there, everyone. I am Lars, and I welcome you to a Halloween review. Brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And today I want to review Amphibia's Halloween special, TheShut-In. And I am here to tell you that this collection of scary stories is a brilliant example of horror storytelling. The show Amphibia is already no stranger to the dark and macabre, as Polly's review of the main character's adventures in the previous season is a stark reminder of. But then again, really, this is just a funny, goofy show for kids, just like Gravity Falls was only just a funny, goofy show for children. Am I right?
Ancient sins! Ancient sins!
Oh, wait, this photo's kind of jank.
You must trick or treat, or die.
It's a heron, a murderous predator that happens to love the taste of flesh.
You two wait here! I've got some children I need to make into corpses!
See you real soon!
But even funny, goofy children's stories can magnificently navigate the twists and turns of horror and deliver meaningful takes and tales that shake the audience to their cores and leave them asking questions about themselves and their reality. And I'm not just talking creepy Goosebumps books right here. No, I'm talking about stuff like Jason Segel's Nightmares, which is a really excellent story about nightmares and why we have them, and many other stories in that same vein. However, what I have just said should get you thinking. What makes a good horror story? The list of qualities and elements that make up a good horror story depend a lot on who you ask. Some people want something that's new that go against the classics. Other people want jump scares. Some people want something that just leaves you disturbed. Others want to be spooked, and people want things that genuinely frighten you, or something that makes you question things. Or maybe just sticks with you and becomes a whole brand new nightmare. But all of these suggestions are subjective. And in fact, what I'm about to share with you is also to a certain extent subjective. But being a fan of classic horror films, I'm going to share with you what I have decided, at least for me, are the attributes of good quality horror, and why I think those attributes indicate that Amphibia's Halloween special, TheShut-In, is a budding horror masterpiece. So, I would say that a great horror story incorporates the three following. First, a firm setting in what we call the normal. This can be a little town, or it could be a house that anyone might own and live in. Or, yes, the normal can even be in a spaceship. The story has to convince us that this place, the setting of the story, is familiar and, at the very least, lived in. If the characters can happily or successfully live there or act in this setting, so can you. And that makes the setting, no matter where it is, from house to little village to the woods to a spaceship, feel normal. Second, the horror in question must be a reflection of the fears that the characters have. For example, in The Woman in Black, the ghost is a horrible wake-up call to the main character that his apathy towards the afterlife is ill-founded, and that any kind of hopes that he had for maybe something peaceful are countered by the stark realities of something awful that actually walks the earth. And many classic horror monsters or killers represent our fears of things like strangers or the dark, or that our deeds will come back to haunt us. Finally, the story must leave the audience questioning their own lives. Classics like Dracula and Frankenstein make us question how far we trust other people, and even ask questions like, where do we draw the line in our own curiosity and ambition? More recent horror stories like Insidious make us question the safety of our own homes, The Purge makes us question our relationships to our neighbors and the government, and Get Out makes us question society's norms and how far we go to cover up the messy bits. If a horror story can make you leave feeling disturbed, but not because it was so graphic and traumatizing, but because it got you to buy into the story, spoke to your fears, and leaves you with questions, then it has succeeded as a horror story. Think of it like this. A story that is primarily made up of jump scares and cheap twists is like eating wasabi, which burns, but only for a second, while a good habanero implants memories as it burns horribly on both ends. A good horror, therefore, impacts you in the moment and long afterwards. And that's a tall order to meet, so let's see how TheShut-In measures up. In the episode proper, we learn that Amphibia is plagued once a year by a blue moon that curses anyone who looks upon it. The citizens of Amphibia go from house to house to gather excess supplies to fortify their homes. They carve fear gourds to ward off monsters and evil, and they even board everything up so that way no blue light seeps through. And they share spooky stories with each other to scare everyone else from not going outside and checking out the moon. And immediately draws links to Halloween, even the fun little jingle that they sing at the beginning of the episode.
Stay inside, hide your eyes, give us practical supplies.
The whole opening to this episode is a very tongue-in-cheek approach to make you connect the shut-in festivities to Halloween. Just like how the folks of Gravity Falls loved Halloween so much that they decided to celebrate it twice a year. And as a side note, let's make Summerween official, people! Golly, I want Halloween twice in my life. Can we please? Thank you. But here's something I also want to point out. Anne and the Planters hiding in their home and waiting out the horrors of the night is very much like the old Italian book, The Decameron, where characters hide out in a mansion waiting out the plague. So there are actually multiple connections between this episode and the real world, thereby cementing how normal it is. Now, the horror contained within this episode is presented through the 3 stories told by Anne, Hop Hop, and Sprig, and I'll look at each one of them individually here in just a bit, but the episode ultimately culminates in Polly wanting her very own unique horror story to share, which is hilarious to consider that, once again, this is just a funny, goofy show for children, right? That she bursts outside, gazes upon the blue moon, and nothing horrible happens. At first. Her choice results in a hilarious transformation into a werewolf thing, and the Planters realizing just how horrifically true the stories of the Shut-In are, which suddenly makes you, as part of the audience, wonder, are all the other stories told potentially true? What does that mean? Are the horror stories that we entertain ourselves with more than just fiction? And that subliminal thought has honestly been with me ever since watching this episode, and has made every single story told within it stick out in many intriguing and wonderfully horrific ways. So, let's have a look at each short story told within the episode, starting with Anne's take, FOMO. Anne says that this title to her story is a pun on the fear of missing out, which we do see because the character Anna wants to see the video that everyone else loves so much. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. The setting is pretty much Anne's school and her house, both of which are very normal. And the characters talking about watching a video and sharing it with others is also just so normal that you would hardly question it. And kudos to the team behind Amphibia for making Sprig, Polly, Maddie, and Toadie so natural as human characters that it didn't even feel weird to see them. So there we have our natural, relatable setting. The horror that is addressed is the fear of missing out, but it's taken to a whole new level. In a setup that is eerily reminiscent of The Ring, Anna's friends talk about the newest, cutest video that is supposedly cursed. I was so primed for the ring shenanigans that I immediately expected the fly within the video to come out of the frickin' screen and attack. But Anna was so determined to see this cute video and be right there with the rest of her friends that she completely ignores Twig's warning. Which, I gotta say, as a teacher, hearing this from a student made me laugh so hard.
Feels nice to have autonomy for a change. Oh, time for class. Gotta do what the bell says.
Now, watching the video obviously enacted the curse upon Anna, and there are a ton of creepy details within the video showing the students who are already getting swallowed up by the curse. I really like this little detail that we see here. Now, here's the thing. The monster comes out of her phone, and that is not the creepiest thing here, nor even is it really the fear of missing out. No. Why has she gone along with Sasha and Marcy for so long, even though they aren't the best friends a girl could have? Because they're better than being alone and misunderstood. In this story, Anne's self-insert character, Anna, is surrounded by loving friends who represent the friends that she's made at Wartwood. Deep down is the fear of missing them and being alone. The fear of missing out on more adventures with these people that she has come to love. That realization instantly made me hope that even though Anne is supposed to repair her relationships with Sasha and Marcy, that Anne will get great friends just like Twig, Molly, Patty, and Brody when she returns to Earth. And that just really stuck out to me. What will Anne's life be like when this adventure in Amphibia is over? And for ourselves, who will we be like after the adventures in our own lives? And how many of us ultimately fear being alone, without family or friends? Also, I now have a newfound appreciative fear for cat videos. Oh, well, anyway, moving on to Hot Pop's story, Dead End. This short story feels like something right out of the glory days for the Twilight Zone, and I loved every moment of it. The setting is one that we as the audience have become familiar with by this time, the town of Wartwood. After episodes of being in Utopia, it honestly feels good to be back in this backwater town. Now, I have to address Hop Pop's incredible pompadour. Focusing on it so much at the beginning is played up for laughs, but it is also there to help us get somewhat used to that ridiculous do. But with the setting and the hair firmly established at the beginning of the episode, we are ready to go. Working as an Uber driver, Hot Pop picks up Death and has to go from house to house so Death can make sure that the departing souls aren't too late, if you get my snail drift. Death proceeds to reap the souls of frogs as they go from house to house, and Hot Pop learns the truth of what is going on and freaks out because he reads that his name is at the very bottom of the list. But the Reaper only takes HP's hair. Suddenly we get a very different view of what is actually going on here. You see, Hot Pop has resigned himself to the grave multiple times throughout Season 1, even though deep down he doesn't really want to die, and that's the thing. The fear here is not so much the fear of death, but the fear of getting old, as symbolized by Hot Pop losing his hair. And there it is. We may or may not fear death itself, but the passage of time and what it brings is an unknown that we cannot persuade to leave us alone, nor can we outpace it. Really, what Dead End leaves us with then are two lingering questions. What will growing up bring to us, the audience? And secondly, the other lingering question is, did this really happen to Hot Pop? This frog right here is just hiding so many secrets, and one of them happens to be buried just outside his house. But this now brings us to Sprig's spooky tale, Skin Deep. Again, the familiar setting to us is Wartwood, but the ball court takes us back to the good old days of Bug Ball and Anne trying to prove herself to the townsfolk. Also, this is a story that is told with Ivy being present, which already puts us at ease because, man, this pairing of Sprig and Ivy is just so dang cute. However, this is Amphibia, so things are going to take a turn for the dark really fast. They lose their ball and they go looking for it. And as they go looking for it, Ivy tells Sprig of the seamstress, a frog who steals the skins of other frogs and knits her grisly trophies into clothing. Fans of stuff like the Chainsaw Massacre and Silence of the Lambs are already at the edge of their seats watching this. As Sprig and Ivy go looking for their lost ball, they come across this dilapidated, crumbling house. And they decide that they're going to look in after seeing that there's a hole in one of the windows. And as they poke around the house trying to find the ball, they discover a barrel full of frog skins. And the seamstress shows up. But she is not exactly who she appears to be. Underneath all of these horribly knitted together frog skins is a glass frog, ashamed of her appearance, and has been killing her fellow frogs and stealing their skins to cover herself up. And in a really neat way, as a glass frog, she provides a chance for Ivy to reflect on her own insecurities about her hair and appearance. This short story ends with Sprig and Ivy burning the house down with the glass frog still inside it. But as Anne says, it leaves us with so many questions. Is that monster still out there? What about Gabe? And so much more. But the lingering question for us is this. Of the many monsters out there in the world, how many of them are just misunderstood? And how many of them are actually wicked? Truly, Skin Deep leaves us with a lot to chew on. But I'm going to pass on the frog skins. Thank you very much. The episode as a whole wraps up with Sprig and Ivy playing a prank on everyone, making them think that Ivy has transformed into the next seamstress. And this reminded me of that time that some of my friends and I were watching the movie Insidious, and a couple of them had already planned a prank on us and made us think that the room was possessed at one point during the movie. Ha ha! Oh, good. Horrifying times. Whew! But anyway, with the door now open, Polly gets outside and gazes upon the blue moon and experiences a delayed transformation. This funny ending, though, brings me back to the very beginning of this video. How much of these stories might actually be true? Anne's story could be easily dismissed as fantasy, a self-insert for this neat little horror story. But what if there is something to it that could actually happen later on? And did Hop Pop really meet death? Did Sprig and Ivy really take on the seamstress? Because the stories told about the blue moon are true. So what about the other stories? How much truth do they hold? That is the ultimate spooky question, and why this episode feels like it's been burned into my mind. This is what makes a horror story both great and memorable. So if you're a writer, here is my writing advice to you. Create a setting that is either familiar or feels lived in for your horror stories. Populate it with characters that are either likable or that your audience can relate to. You then create a horror that reflects in some way the deep fears that you play out throughout the rest of the scenario. The fears that your characters or that your audience might have. However your story concludes, whether it be a happy ending, a horrific ending, or an ambiguous one, it needs to leave your audience with questions. And these questions have greater impact when they address deeper fears and concerns that your readers might have, and not just simply world-building questions or monster questions. And yeah, that basically does it for this video. There's actually a ton more to say about TheShut-In and Amphibia in general. But those are conversations that we would love to have with you in the comments and in other videos. So feel free to subscribe and stay tuned for those videos coming in the near future. And we've got both Amphibia and Owl House stuff in the works, so just wait. And until then, if you are looking for more writing advice, please check out our podcast, Camille's Harem. And if you would like to reach out to us, if you'd like to share with us your writing experiences, or if you've got questions about writing, please contact us over at our subreddit. Also, we have on our Pinterest page exercises to help you expand your writing skills. Links to all of those sites are in the description. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of this spooky adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.